leave it there. Before we start, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually read a prayer for the hostages. We've got a group here. So this is a prayer for those impacted by 10/7. It was written by Rabbi Rachel A. Simmons. O God, who comforts the brokenhearted, we raise our voices to you in pain, in hope, and in urgent plea on behalf of those taken hostage by Hamas. May those who have been rescued or released find strength, comfort, renewal, and healing in the embrace of their loved ones. May your presence be a balm to their hurting bodies and hearts. May those still held captive soon be free from anguish and brutality. May they feel the unending love of your presence and the support of the Jewish people throughout the world. May those who have been murdered by the enemy find peace in eternity with our ancestors, and may their families near and far be surrounded by love, compassion, and community. O God, who has guided us through flood and fire, through darkness and despair, please fill our hearts with love, relief, and faith in this chapter of urgency and pain. May the source of peace bring peace to us and to Israel, and may every single remaining hostage be released speedily and in our time. Amen.
Amen.
Eric, I can't thank you enough for this conversation, but I'm going to open it up to folks. So if anybody has a question, I put it into gallery view here. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand electronically. I see that Rose has her hand up. So Rose, why don't you unmute yourself and come on in?
Oh, Dr. Mandel, maybe this is not important, but as you were talking about Lebanon, I was thinking of the Lebanese that I know here in the United States, and they're almost all Catholic. Is there any influence of the Catholic Lebanese in Lebanon today, or have they all come to America?
It's funny, when I was, some of you know that I was a surgeon and I trained up in Mass Eye and Ear.
Eric, get a little closer to the mic.
I had trained in Mass Eye and Ear in Boston in the 80s when the Lebanese Civil War was going on. And I would meet some of the expatriates who had been in American University in Beirut, the ophthalmologists, who came and didn't go back. So there's a lot of the Christian Lebanese have come here. There's been a change in the demographics of Lebanon. So what used to be, we'll say, partly Druze, Sunni, Shiites, and Christians, where the Christians, Sunnis, and Shiites were the three big groups. Now almost half are Shiite, and so many have left, especially the Christians, the educated. They still have influence. They're guaranteed one of the primary positions there. But that is one of the problems of a lot of good, maybe more moderate people that have left.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you, Rose. The Denkers had a question, and then
Thank
I
you.
see Harvey Mantel has a question. So, Denkers, you first.
Hi, Dr. Mandel. Thank you so much for this talk, as always. We miss you at the JCC. I hope you come back this summer. I have two really quick questions. The first one is, I was watching the news, I guess, a couple days ago, and I just wanted to know what you think of the Palestinian protests that I'm seeing now, that they're, holding signs and protesting against Hamas and Gaza. So the Palestinians that are in Gaza are now protesting. So that's the first time in, since this all started that I have seen this, at least in the news.
Right. So thank you, Jill, for that question. We don't know. The fear of Palestinians to protest is real, because they can literally be killed. And if not them, their families, and people could be tortured. So the fact that there are protests is important. How many people want to protest? I'm sure it's 1,000-fold more. Will this grow to be something? It is not part of that society with protests. They just never have had this. Is the fact that Israel has decreased some of the humanitarian aid made that go on? There's enough humanitarian aid for months in Gaza, although Hamas can basically hold back what it has, and it's been stealing and making money on for a long time. Let's hope that the protests could put pressure on Hamas. I'm not optimistic. They are a brutal regime and more than happy to make examples of their own people. You see this of other authoritarians. It's why the Iranian people are kept down. I mean, you see this in many societies where there's brutal, tyrannical rule, whether it's radical jihadism or something else.
So I totally understand what you're saying. And that's why I looked at it and I was like, what is going on there? This is the first time I've seen Palestinians be brave enough to protest, and it
Glimmer of hope.
yes, no, that's what it did. It did. I felt that. So the other quick question is, are you involved? Have you been involved in helping the hostages to be released? Because I didn't know. I would love for you to be that person. And I'm wondering if you have done any, involved in any way over the past year.
Very indirectly. I've interviewed some of the hostage families that were in the Knesset, and I had put that on Instagram. If anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, it's at Dr. Eric Mandel, Eric Mandel. I am in constant touch with somebody who is that is part of the negotiation and was very involved in previous negotiations of what's there. I do credit him that he wants all the hostages out. Not of these partial deals, but he wants all Israel to 100% leave Gaza, everything to save every possible hostage. He was somebody who was actually the one who ran the Gilad Shalit negotiations. I don't think the current Israelis who are leading what's going on are willing to do that. And I don't believe, Netanyahu's doing that for any political purposes. It's just it's a question that's unanswerable. How can you, you'll take a ceasefire in order to get some more hostages out, but then you want to go back, and each time it becomes harder. There's no magic formula here, and I think people have been unfair to the current government about that. I think you have people of the far right within the government who said some very harsh things about the hostages and the families that has had no place in the conversation. Everybody's heart, even if you or somebody thinks that Hamas has to be destroyed before all the hostages come out, your heart must break for the hostage families and what they're going through and what the hostage. And by the way, I just want to touch one other thing that you had said, Michael, and it relates to this. The post-traumatic stress of Israel, and I'm not saying post-traumatic, it's the traumatic stress of Israel, is going to be an epidemic for a generation. It's not just of the soldiers, the hostages, and not just of the soldiers who have fought and have been injured, but of their families, and everybody's one degree of separation from somebody that they know. I spoke for an FIDF national meeting, and I brought this up, and they said they had already collected $100 million for PTSD. And it's probably a drop in the bucket of what's there. So again, there's so many of things one can do, and there are many organizations. This is not to promote one organization up, but if you're asking where things are going to be needed once war stops, and actually during the war you need to do this also, but the traumatic stress of Israelis is incomprehensible, despite them somehow being 8th in the world in the happiness index, which
Unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable. That's just something else. You had to put something positive related to all the negative that I'm saying.
You've got bombs flying all over the place and all this going on, and they're still they're happy. It's
not happy. It's lives of meaning. I think that's deep down.
Nice.
They have purpose and meaning in their lives, and when they break that down of what that means, we in America can only think of happiness as related to material things, and that's not what happiness is about. You know that.
Great. Okay, let's
Thank
go.
you. Thank you.
Jill, thank you for your question and for framing it so nicely. Harvey Mandel.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Mandel, I'm next in line for all the accolades, and I want to thank you for preemptively, I mean it in a positive way, preemptively answering a number of questions or concerns that I've had that I'm sure other people, react the same way. But I was driving for a good chunk of of your talk, and I wanted to ask if you touched upon the issue of Qatar funding the radical left professors, and you probably did, and I probably just
Harvey, I thank you.
No, we didn't go that. Thank you.
We
for
didn't
that.
get to Qatar.
oh, okay, because it's like it's like no offense to anybody who's in the banking industry, but there's an undercurrent of people who believe like nice banking people. Well, they're kind of like prostitutes in gray flannel suits. My point is that Qatar puts on a good show. It dresses nicely. Those Qatari Airways commercials are really very inviting, but they do funnel a lot of money into terrorism, probably for the reasons you mentioned of not, we'll leave your civilized Muslim country alone if you play ball with us the way we dictate it enough. So I think that goes on, like you mentioned, in the Arab world, when they find a common enemy, even if they're more tacit and more civilized and dressed up and nicey nice about it, but it's there. So I have heard that, in these kind of circles.
All right,
And
so
I just wanted to bring that up. And it does go back at least as far as the 90s on a number of levels. I can't quote the author, but there was an article I read through one of these, common sense but educational Jewish Israeli outlets about a project between Palestinians and Israel's, not the SodaStream company, but there was a very nice business proposition, and I think it was in the 90s, and they were going for, the Jewish Israeli guy was going for a meeting with the Arab Palestinian guy, and the guy, when he finally showed up and wasn't dodging him, made it very clear what the long-term plan was, exactly as you described it. It's so infrastructural.
Let me just jump on
let's go back to
Qatar.
Qatar.
So
Yeah, sorry.
regarding Qatar, it's mixed. I'll give you the good. Qatar has helped build America's most important base in the Persian Gulf. Al Udeid is where our CENTCOM is. They've acted as a mediator. But, and it's a lot of buts, the Qataris basically are the finances of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the ideology that supports all radical Islamism around the world. They've given sanctuary to Hamas. They have funded Hamas. They had the biggest donors to our universities that have and have put in radicalism into our university system. And yet, you hear people, and by this is Democratic and Republicans, who defend them. Under the Biden administration, they made them a major non-NATO ally. President Trump's envoy Witkoff just said, the Qataris are wonderful and great and all this other stuff. And I have to say, I'm frustrated both with the Democrats and Republicans that are not pushing Qatar to be closer to America, not anti-Israel, not undermining our allies, and not funding radical Islamism, and not undermining our universities. And the fact that you have people making lots of money dealing with the Qataris is no reason, if once they get into public service, that they should be thinking about that, and they should be thinking about what's best for American national security interests. And Qatar is, like Turkey, is best a frenemy. And by the way, Turkey is and Qatar are both, you can think of them as the Muslim Brotherhood. And what is Hamas? Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar is the problem, and there should be sanctions against them, not praise.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Harvey, for the question. You took us in a direction that we were going to go, but we didn't get there. So excellent. Janet Miller.
God bless. Well, thank you.
Janet Miller.
You have to take yourself off.
I'm gonna give you a prompt, Janet, to unmute. There you go.
I'm Joel, her husband, but I have
hi,
a question.
Hi, Joel. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you all?
Great.
So my question is, the doctor mentioned July 1 as a